The Switch library has been off to a good start this year, and obviously there are certain major titles still coming out very soon, a certain Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, but I wanted to look at the list of all the other games slated to come out this year that I am excited to see, leaving out certain maybe very obvious ones. And I got a list of 17 games I want to talk about. Now, this year's looking really great for indies and crowdfunded games, but there's some more titles coming from more traditional companies as well. I don't really want to waste any more time leading up into it, so let's start right away with the remaster of Ghost Trick. Ghost Trick was a Nintendo DS mystery adventure game with a focus on time-limited puzzles that you had to solve, and it is one of my favorite games in the genre. The basic pitch of the game is that you start off right away as a ghost who has amnesia. You do not remember how you died, why you died, or who you even are, making use of your spooky ghost poltergeist powers, being able to possess a variety of objects on the stages, and trying to figure out the right way to make use of them in combination and in order to solve each stage. The puzzles you need to solve supply a good challenge, but what really made this game shine is the storytelling. It walks a wonderful balance of offering some dramatic moments and some incredible plot twists, while also just being consistently bonkers and hilarious. Topping all that off, the game also features Missile the Pomeranian, the best dog in video games ever. I will not elaborate any further. Just do yourself a favor and check this game out when it drops on June 30th of this year. Next up, Blasphemous II. If you do not play or check out the first one, it is a 2D action-adventure game that is basically a mashup of a Metroidvania with a little bit of Dark Souls inspiration. I know it's really cliche to say different things to the Dark Souls of things, but this is one of those cases where it actually does make sense. The way in which the game imparts its lore, the way that it punishes you for dying repeatedly, albeit not nearly as severe as it is in a lot of other Souls-likes, and really most importantly, it not only balanced those mechanics well, but was just a visually incredible game that just oozes an extremely metal style that I cannot help but fall in love with. 2 looks to be building up on this framework with an art style that looks a little more punched up, but what I'm most excited about, and particularly they revealed recently, is the fact that this new game also offers multiple fighting styles to choose from. In the original game, you just had a longsword with its own specific moveset, whereas in this one, there are now going to be 4 different weapons you can wield, all of which handled differently, opening up a lot more variety in the gameplay, which is the type of thing that just gets my brain going. If you're into Souls-like or Metroidvanias at all, and if you haven't played the first one yet, check it out and get ready for the second one. We don't have a firm release date just yet, but it is slated for late summer of this year. Mina the Hollower. This is the next brand new game to come from Yacht Club Games, most popularly known for the Shovel Knight franchise and making the original Shovel Knight games. And similar to Shovel Knight, Mina the Hollower is taking formulas from a lot of classic retro games, but putting its own spin on it and refining it extremely. And in this particular case, it looks like the main focus here is Link's Awakening. It is an intentionally very Game Boy looking style game with a top-down action focus, but with a lot more going on under the hood compared to Link's Awakening, with all kinds of advanced mechanics you can mess with. I actually got the chance to play an early demo version of the game that I did a video on last year, and I absolutely fell in love with it. There are so many cool little things about how this game works, whether that includes being able to do things like reflecting your own weapons back at enemies to do a juggling mechanic, or the fact that while Link's Awakening is one very obvious inspiration, but also pulls a lot of more subtle inspiration from another one of my favorite games, Bloodborne, from its storyline inspirations, or from the way you interact with its various NPCs to do different side stories or side quests, and in having a health recovery mechanic that is rooted in favoring a more offensive playstyle. Shovel Knight is a title that quickly became one of my favorite games of all time, and I cannot wait to see what they do with the full version of Mina the Hollower. The release date for this one is still currently up in the air, but the goal is to have it out by the end of 2023. Dokapon Kingdom Connect. Look, there's a couple different remasters that I'm talking about in this video, but what makes this one a little bit different is this is a game that I actually never got the chance to play the original of because it came out on the Wii and pretty quickly became a pretty expensive one to pick up, but it is something that I am so extremely intrigued by, and I'm very excited to now give it a shot on the Switch. This is basically a mashup of Mario Party and RPG mechanics. Different players on the board take on the roles of traditional fantasy classes like fighters, wizards, clerics, all that good stuff. You can unlock additional classes to play as that have their own different ways that stats increase and different abilities that they gain, but the whole Mario Party aspect of this is the fact that it is on a game board, and ultimately you're all competing to make the most gold out of anyone on the board. If you're into the idea of destroying friendships by just getting into extremely competitive video board games, and you've already done plenty of matches of what Mario Party games have been available on the Switch so far, this is going to open up a new option to play and something that is definitely a bit different. Plus, I mean, come on, look how cute it is. The game is already released in Japan, but the English version will be out in just a few weeks on May 9th of 2023. Rift of the Necrodancer. This is another spin-off from the wonderful roguelike rhythm dungeon delver game Crypt of the Necrodancer, and leans a little harder into its traditional rhythm game style roots, but still looks like it's doing things its own way in a really interesting style. It is a lane-based rhythm game where you have to hit the right button on beat when something happens in its particular lane, except the fact that all the different enemies that show up in these lanes have different styles of movement similar to they did in Crypt of the Necrodancer. So for instance, some enemies move every other beat, some enemies move diagonally across the board, so you actually have to anticipate which lane they're going to land on. Art style's looking good, music's sounding great. I enjoyed both Crypt of the Necrodancer and its Zelda spin-off with Cadence of Hyrule, so a new entry in the franchise is something I'm absolutely going to check out right away. We don't have a hard release date for this one just yet, but it is slated to come out this year. Gunbrella. Look, I'm a simple man. There's a lot of different genres of games that I enjoy, but at the end of the day, sometimes a good old-fashioned, well-designed 2D action platformer is all I need, and Gunbrella is looking to be a game that taps into that feeling. The title doubles as a very appropriate description for the kind of one unique thing about this game, which is the fact that your main weapon that you focus on using is both a gun and an umbrella. The umbrella playing a role in things like platforming, or can be used as a shield against enemy attacks, or the gun being, well, a gun and how you defeat enemies. Fun-looking gameplay plus the noir aesthetic, which is a setting that isn't nearly tapped into enough for a lot of video games, makes this something that I want to keep my eye open for when it launches sometime this year. Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes. This is part of that trend of crowdfunded games where basically the original developers of a beloved older franchise, in this case Suikoden, are working on and releasing their own spiritual successor. If you're not familiar with the Suikoden franchise, this was basically the one big RPG underneath Konami, and part of the selling point of it is that in every single game there were 108 characters you could recruit. Not all of these are characters that'll participate in battles, some of them just offer things like services or open up minigames, that kind of thing, but a really core part of what made the games fun was not only getting through a great RPG story, but doing your best to recruit as many of the heroes as you can, and really trying to get every single one of them. Eiyuden Chronicle is looking to deliver on this same style, but with a brand new original world that they're working with, and a visual style that evokes the kind of energy of a PS1 game, but something that is far more beautiful. If you're at all interested in this game, there is also a prequel title for it that is already out that does not use the same gameplay mechanics. It is a relatively simple 2D action platformer, but it introduces you to some of the characters, lets you know a little bit about the world, and is going to support save imports, so some of the things that you do in that game will have an impact on the final full title. Which, by the way, speaking of Suikoden, another game on this list is, well, Suikoden. Despite the fact that Konami has not been doing a whole lot of brand new titles lately, they have been investing a lot more in ports and remasters. Castlevania in particular has been receiving a lot of love, but the next game getting it is Suikoden 1 and 2 in a combo pack. These two games are both originally released on the PS1, and while they are technically their each individual story, there is a lot of crossover from the first one and the second one. There are a ton of returning characters. And again, like I said while talking about Eiyuden Chronicle, this is a wonderful classic JRPG, and Suikoden 2 in particular is one of the best made of all time in my opinion. From what we've seen of the remaster so far, it's not only just bringing back these wonderful games to new audiences today, but is giving a pretty good visual facelift across the entire title, and for the most part, I'm really liking the direction that I'm seeing them take it in. If you're a fan of RPGs, both of these are games you should be looking out for that, as of right now at least, do not have hard release dates, but are slated for this year. Metal Slug Tactics. This is the next game coming from Dotemu, who has very quickly become one of my favorite developers that has a focus on doing retro-style games with modern styling. Some of their best titles so far have been side-scrolling beat-em-ups. In particular, Streets of Rage 4 is an incredible game, but with Metal Slug Tactics, they're tackling a bit of a different genre and one of my personal favorites, tactical RPGs. This is taking the Metal Slug universe and familiar Metal Slug characters and is turning it into a tactical grid-style combat game. Now, despite the fact that we've known about this one for a little while and it was supposed to come out last year, there have not been a ton of updates on it recently. We only have a couple of early trailers to still go off of. Admittedly, the release date for this one is a little nebulous. I'm not even sure if 23 is a safe bet for it right now, but I'm just kind of putting that positive energy out there right now with this video because I would love to get my hands on this game as soon as possible. Oxenfree 2 Lost Signals. This is another sequel to a small indie title that I absolutely fell in love with quite a few years ago now. I've been waiting for the sequel for quite a bit. This is an adventure-focused story game, basically something that plays like a point-and-click with a heavy focus on narrative and character relationships. The first game had a very heavy Breakfast Club vibe as far as how the cast of characters all interacted and the ways in which you could get better or worse relationships with everyone as you proceed to try and figure out the weird spooky stuff that's going on the island that you're visiting. And 2 looks like it's going to be giving us the opportunity to not only explore the island further with a new cast of characters, but also give us maybe a little more insight in all the mysteries going on inside of it. The game's art style is clean, but one of my absolute favorite favorite things about the first one that I think 2 is going to deliver on as well is the soundtrack, which has some heavy synthwave vibes and perfectly complements the story being told here. It's been a long wait for this game to come out, but we finally have a hard release date thanks to the recent Indie World presentation, and it'll be coming out July 12th of this year. Bomb Rush Cyberfunk, another indie game for the Switch that was revealed a while back that we've been waiting on more information on for quite a good bit, and thankfully finally now has a release date. This is basically the spiritual successor to Jet Set Radio, not only in terms of the vibes and style and core gameplay, but even includes tracks composed by the original composer of the series. The trick-focused gameplay, the colorful visuals, the bits of the soundtrack that we've already heard really pieced together to look like something that's going to actually deliver on filling the hole that Jet Set Radio has left behind. And we're gonna find out whether or not it sticks that landing on August 18th of this year. Sea of Stars. Look, if you've kept up with this channel at all and have watched some of my Nintendo Direct reactions or any other listicles similar to this, Sea of Stars is a game that I'm going to bring up a lot, really often. I mean, it's currently my background on basically all of my devices. This is a love letter to SNES era RPGs, in particular Chrono Trigger and Super Mario RPG, 2 of my all-time favorites, and it's being developed by Sabotage Studio, whose only previously released game was The Messenger, another love letter title focused on ninja platforming games, which was quite frankly incredible. There's so much going on with this game that I'm in love with that I don't really want to talk to at length here because I feel like I could go on forever, but I did do an actual dedicated video on the demo that has been released for the Switch on my side channel, which I'm going to be resuming uploads on shortly. If you haven't seen that though, go check it out on Next Side Quest. And if you have a Switch and haven't checked it out yet, absolutely play the demo. It is phenomenal, and join me in getting extremely hyped for what might be one of the best games of the year when it comes out on August 29th. The Plucky Squire. This is the first game to come from a new dev team called All Possible Futures and is being published by Devolver Digital. And this is one of those games where the first time I set my eyes on the trailer, I was immediately intrigued. The way they kind of presented it really is that it starts off looking like a fairly simple, top-down, straightforward, colorful 2D action game, which is still something I'm very into and I would be interested anyways, but the twist here is that this is one of those titles where it's going to jump between 2D and 3D realms, where characters literally free themselves of the books that they are a part of and explore the 3D world around them. I can't think of a better word to describe this game's visuals other than delightful. I mean, just the use of colors, the way the characters are designed, both in their 2D and 3D forms. There's a lot more we need to learn about it still, but from what they've shown so far, there is a lot of potential here, and I hope it makes it in time for a 23 release date. Fuga, Melodies of Steel 2. If you're not at all familiar with the first game, do not let some of the aspects of the visuals fool you. Despite the fact that there are cute-looking animal critter characters that you are playing as, this is a surprisingly very dark series. The basic pitch of the first game, which looks like it's carrying over into this one, is that you have a crew of kids and teenagers that are surviving through a war-torn country and are currently all living on a giant experimental tank that they're using to try and help defend their people and get their friends back, and just so happens also to have a special superpower cannon that is fueled by the souls of people sacrificed to it. Like I said, dark. Over the course of the game's story and turn-based style battles, you make decisions that will affect where the plot can go. You may end up losing some characters that can influence how things turn out as well. Thanks to some time travel shenanigans, the more progress you make in this game, the better chance you have of getting everyone alive through the whole thing. This is a very specific kind of game that I know is not for everyone, but I'm really glad it's getting a sequel. It'll be coming out shortly on May 11th of this year. Baten Kaitos 1 and 2 HD Remaster. I know there's been a couple remasters on this list. This is the last one, I promise. We're also almost at the end of the video. This is coming from Monolith Soft, who more recently is probably most known for the Xenoblade Chronicle series of games, but back on the GameCube, they made a pair of games called Baten Kaitos and Baten Kaitos Origins, which were very unique RPGs, especially for their time. These games fuse traditional turn-based RPG mechanics with collectible card game things, something that I think we've seen a lot more indie games nowadays begin to experiment with, but this really wasn't that common back when this game came out. Being a lifelong fan of JRPGs and how that is a genre that unfortunately ends up seeing a lot of its titles just getting more and more expensive when they are stuck being retro, I'm just really happy to see how many of them are getting remade, this one included. This is actually a game that I missed the chance out on playing the original versions of, so I cannot wait to experience these new ones, and while it's great that Xenoblade Chronicles has been as big of a hit as it has been, I'm excited to see some of their other franchises and ideas get a chance in the spotlight. This is another game that does not have a hard release date just yet, but it does have a planned window of summer summer of this year. Deca Police. This is a brand new IP coming from Level 5, who is known for puzzle games like Professor Layton and RPG titles like Ni no Kuni, and this looks to be a game that combines elements of both of those styles. You play as detectives solving crimes in a virtual reality world, and while it does have those puzzle mystery aspects that, well, Professor Layton's a little more focused on little mini games, it actually has a little bit of a Ace Attorney vibe to me in terms of how that aspect of the gameplay plays out, but mixed in with that is also RPG style turn-based battles. Level 5 has made some wonderful stuff, and I'm really interested in seeing how this kind of mashup of different genres they've done before really comes together when it launches sometime this year. Last but not least, Silksong. Doesn't matter what year it is, doesn't matter how long it takes, I'm gonna keep hoping that this ends up actually dropping and becomes a reality. It's been a little while since the last time we got an update. There was actually an appearance it made at an Xbox showcase that said that it would happen sometime within a year, which is coming up really quickly. I'm keeping the hope alive. Someday, that game is gonna come out. I'm gonna absolutely love it because Hollow Knight was fantastic and I need more of it. So there are 17 games all coming to the Switch that are slated for this year. Admittedly, a few of them definitely have slightly more unknown release dates and may end up being pushed back to next year, but I'm gonna keep the hope alive. All of them look wonderful and they're all stuff I plan to play. There's absolutely more stuff on the way, of course, this year, as well as things that we could find about as the year goes on. June is always a great window for announcements and new things to be revealed. So let me know down below in the comments, what other Switch games are you looking forward to this year? What stuff do you hope to see get announced before the year is over? As always, if you enjoyed the video, hit that thumbs up button to let me know, subscribe if you haven't yet, and I will see you guys later.